Hi, my name is Michelle, and I have with me today Loren-Paul Caplin. Mr. Caplin is a writer, director, and a professor. If you haven't seen his short movie called History of the World in 8 minutes, you have to watch it. It's unbelievable. Thank you for talking with me today, Mr. Caplin.
My pleasure.
I saw you on, it was a life screenwriting panel, and that's kind of how I was listening to you, and I was like, I want to check out that short film, and I went on it. I was just blown away by it. It's so interesting. I've been telling so many people about it and that they needed to, watch it because you can pull it up on YouTube. Oh, right. Did I pull it up on Amazon? I might have pulled it up on Amazon, actually. But anyway, I just, I loved everything you had to say. I was talking with a professor at UCLA. His name's Richard Walter, and he's the one that kind of got me interested in the screenwriting, thing. I have a blog and I've written a couple of things, but I started looking into screenwriting, and I was, like I said, when I was watching your YouTube, I was like, the craft of screenwriting is just so much more than I ever gave it credit. Like I always thought about, writing books and writing blogs, but after listening to him and then reading some screenwriting books, and I was like, the art of it is just to get it out there is just so much more than just writing a book to me, so now I'm starting to dissect movies when I go to movies.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's a crazy art form, but I loved what you said when you were talking to Mitchell Bard, when you said that it's like you think you have something, but you really don't know until it's up there. You don't, like you think you've written a great screenplay, or you go to a movie and you're like, I can write that. That's not dialogue that I couldn't write. But it's not just about that. It's not just about, it's like, can it work, and will it work? And you have all these unanswered questions about it. And so anyway, I really loved like what you had to say. And where did you get the concept for that movie? Like, how did you...
For the History of the World, you mean? And by the way, I have a feature film called The Lucky One that I encourage you to find.
I tried to find that. I did try to find that. I couldn't find it on Amazon or Netflix. Do you know where people could find it?
Yeah, it's on Netflix, but not streaming. You have to get it. You have to get the video.
Oh, okay.
And not many people do get videos anymore. You could probably buy it on Amazon. But don't worry about it. I don't know the distribution.
Okay.
It was a small company. It was an independently made film. But I sort of feel that the narrative process has these three major components: theme, character, and story/structure. And I think that each of us have our own predilections how we enter stories, and it may change from story to story. For me, it's ideas and themes which really compel me to want to see or read or be involved in a narrative. It's those kind of ideas. And then obviously we want a great story, we want great characters. But as I said, and I don't limit this to one better than the other, I just say that the great stuff that we love tends to have all three of those things are working. And for me, ideas are the senior issue. So I'm always trying to figure out how to articulate ideas that I have. In this case, History of the World in 8 minutes was about how history is actually made by various moments on when you record an event. And somehow you could look at long struggles throughout history, and everyone's right on each side of the struggle, depending on where you pick up the struggle. So everyone tends to be right. So perspective and point of view has made up history. Of course, they say that history is written by the victors. So whoever was the victor at that time gets to write their view of world history. Now we have revisionist history, which is kind of popular today, and people are rethinking all kinds of previously held beliefs, like Christopher Columbus, et cetera, et cetera. So these are wonderful philosophical notions and ideas, and then the question is, how do you articulate them in a fun, dramatic, entertaining way? And that comes into this narrative process that you're referring to, which is funny. You used the word craft, and then you used the word art, and of course it is both art and craft. And the craft part is, I think, really the thing that you were kind of alluding to. And I think the craft part is really, really an important part for the art to come through. You really have to understand the craft of the form. So yeah, I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah, and I was reading the book Save the Cat. Okay,
Right.
and you also see these books if you go on Amazon that are like write a screenplay in 20 days or 20
right.
hours or 24 hours. Or,
I know.
Crazy, and they kind of have this formula, and it's like I do understand that to a point, but I don't. I was talking about it with Richard Walter, and he was saying that too. It's like yes and no. Like really, you're not. Maybe you could write it all down in that amount of time, but to really get it perfected, it's kind of not really the revisions and how many times most screenplays are not just revised once or twice, they're revised 20 times. And
also not only you're right, but one thing that we're not talking about is, and I stress both in my classes and in my practice and as a screenwriter as well as a consultant, it takes days, weeks, months, and years before you begin.
Right.
So that's the whole thing to these stupid books that talk about, write a hit movie in 20 days, write characters that'll sell. These books are all well-meaning, and you can probably, glean various information from them. But nothing is that easy. Otherwise, it would be that easy, and it's not. And,
right.
But there's a lot of thought. I'm always stressing to do more thinking about the stuff before people start writing. And that doesn't mean thinking just in the head. You can write notes down. You can write clips of dialogue down. You can write all kinds of things down, but really work that out. You have to really work it out. You need to know what's going to happen in the end, in the middle, before you write the beginning. And or if you could write the beginning, but then you have to conform with the beginning and the end and the middle. And so you have to work out how everything dovetails. And it's like building a puzzle backwards and forwards simultaneously.
Right, and the one thing that I loved, I think it was in Save the Cat too, is that they said that if you watch a movie, like when you go to the movies, within the first 10 minutes, you'll have somebody tell you, one of the characters will say a line to your protagonist or hero or whatever you want to call them that's actually going to be the theme of the movie. So then you kind of get what the movie, where the movie's going. And I never thought about that before, of course, and I've seen movies, and I love movies, and I've seen movies my entire life, and I never thought about that. But I saw recently the new Brad Pitt movie, Allied,
yes.
And it does do that. I was like, okay, I set my, phone, 10 minutes. I want to know in 10 minutes who says what to him that changes, that's going to make me follow. And did you see that movie?
I haven't. So what's the line that I know about it? So what's the line?
Okay, the line that I thought, and I could be wrong because of course everybody's going to pick up something different. Yeah. But she says to him, she kind of comes on to him in the very beginning. They're supposed to be husband and wife,
right.
Portraying husband and wife, and she tries to come on to him, and he said, "No, I think that'll ruin everything. We have to keep this above board." And she said, "No, we can. That's not what's going to ruin it. What's going to ruin it is if we fall in love." And that's a very that's not the exact quote, but that's what she says. It's like, no, falling in love's the problem, not us having sex. That's not the problem, right? So then the end of the movie, I don't want to ruin it for you, but that becomes.
I've seen the coming attractions, and I get that in fact is the essence of the movie, because is his love going to be bigger than the evidence against her as a spy? So
correct.
He needs to pick something. So I figured out from the previous one the premise. So that really shows she does sort of state, it's not the theme. She begins to state, a big emotional line in the whole movie right there. So
right, and that it's going to be him and not her is the thing that I didn't. At that moment, I was like, that's interesting, because it does seem like she's the one that it's going to be the problem for, but it turns out that it's him that it's the problem for, which is like, oh, right, it is him. Like he, because you're always, and that's like saying it's kind of stereotyping a romantic comedy or whatever, that it's always the woman who's going to fall in love. But it actually turns out to be that he's the one that it becomes an issue for, not her,
Right.
And when I walked out of the movie, I was still, they leave it very open-ended, I have to say, and it's sometimes sometimes they wrap them up really nice, and then other times you walk out and the person I was with, we ended up arguing about the last, 15 minutes of the movie for a day,
Did you feel satisfied? Did you enjoy the movie? or just
I
the ending?
enjoyed the acting of the movie. I mean, yes. I mean, it was a great movie, and that has some, sure, when they wrap it up nicely, like that is a way to end the movie, or like saying, was she a spy? You know, was she in love with him? Wasn't she in love with him? That's
Right.
what you end up leaving with. You don't know. So you get to argue about that with whoever you're with. Like,
well, if you're arguing, then it's probably worth arguing. So
right.
Otherwise, that's something.
Right. It was something. I mean, it really, yes, it was a great movie. Of course, that, Brad Pitt doesn't make a movie that, for just to spend his time on,
Of course not. Yeah. Right. Well, it's hard to do. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. But, in terms of stating things in the first 10 minutes, I'm at the point now where there's just so many exceptions to so many rules that so many people are making a living out of dissecting movies and giving their opinions on how exactly it should be. And it starts to be a self-fulfilling prophecy, because then people read those books and then add those lines to the first 10 minutes, whereas they might not have before. So,
interesting. Interesting.
When you look at the history of narratives, there's a lot of variety, thank God. And my favorite movies, oftentimes break all kinds of molds. I think again and again you can dissect entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
I think and when I say entertainment, I'm not saying that's a frivolous thing. Entertainment can be dark and sophisticated. It can be all kinds of things. It can even be philosophical and heavy. Entertainment, I'm not saying like just la la la. It could be anything. I think you can comprehend and understand what causes you to be compelled to watch something. You can break that down. But I think there's many ways to accomplish that. And even though I teach a fairly rigorous structure, I'm trying to do it in an open-ended way that leaves all kinds of room without it being too formulaic for people to be creative within. So, anyhow.
Well, and I guess if they could figure it out, then you wouldn't call it necessarily art or craft, because then it would just be this formula that the movie industry wasn't taking a risk of millions of dollars for, right? It's
that's right.
Oh, this is guaranteed to, going to be the biggest blockbuster ever, or, they're taking a risk, so they obviously they know what does work sometimes, but it's not always.
Yeah, they try. Again, the Hollywood has changed. Hollywood these days are primarily involved in roller coaster rides, and these are theme park attractions.
That was going to actually be my next question to you, because I did see Doctor Strange a couple of weeks ago, and I was walked out of that, and I thought, is that changing the world? Like, is the whole special effects, is that changing the dialogue? Is it changing what you're teaching to screenwriters now? Like, it seems to be like these big characters, these big hero characters, that it's more about this animation of it. You know what I mean? Like, it's more about the special effects.
The truth is, the big movies follow the basic structure better than any of them, because they don't take any chances with that. The character has an arc. The character declares what he's going to do. By the end of Act 1, you know the situation. Some of the Nolan movies get a little more complicated, like The Dark Knight. But these big movies, for the most part, are the most formulaic of all. And the Marvel world, are pretty big, beloved characters. And the wonderful thing about the Marvel world is that all the characters are really neurotic. All those heroes have real big issues. And that's what you teach, and that's what you want. So many screenwriters forget to make their characters complex and problematic and neurotic. And all those cartoon characters have those things built in. But I was going to say that the special effects don't change the basic craft. What they have done, however, is they've just made the smaller, more intimate movie more difficult to make, because the bigger movies take up all the money and resources and advertising and commitment and investment. So it's just harder to make the smaller movies. Even when I say smaller movies, whether it's a $5 or $10 million movie that's just a great film, and there's all kinds of examples of those. I'm thinking like, The Lives of Others, which is an East German film, German film, which won the Academy Award for Best Foreign Film for $2.5 million. And it made like $80 million. And another movie called The Secret in Their Eyes, which is an amazing movie from Argentina, also won Best Foreign Film. And it also cost under $3 million, and it went on to make $70 million. But whether it went on to make the money or not, the point is that the smaller, great movies are very hard to make because actors want to be paid $20 million to be in it. So it just changes the entire game entirely. So the special effects don't change anything. It just depends on the movies we want to see. I like all kinds of movies, but I'm kind of tired of the big movies. I will see Strange because people say it's good, Doctor Strange, and I probably will see Allied as well, but I'm not rushing out to those. I saw a movie which I particularly liked the other day, which came up last year. It's called Mr. Holmes, Holmes, as in Sherlock Holmes.
Wait, is that? Oh, interesting. Who plays him?
Ian McKellen, because he plays Holmes as an old man, and he's lost his memory.
I haven't seen that either. I didn't. I have to look it up because I do tend to, just because I have children, like they want to see Doctor Strange.
Absolutely.
They want to see the bigger blockbusters. But I found, not that Benedict didn't do an absolute, like, he was fantastic. Okay?
I heard that.
But
he's great.
Yeah, he's fantastic. But when I dissected that movie, it absolutely followed it to the letter. He starts off a certain way.
Sure.
He gets to a certain point. It's absolutely a formula. And I sat there going, okay, well, you're right. They're going to stick to that formula because
absolutely. And that's
they
fine.
know the kids that are teenagers are going, and they don't see it like we do, and they want to be on that ride, and they want to see all those special effects. And I can see how that eats up the money for, because...
And there's nothing wrong with that. And
right.
And what we're calling a formula is not necessarily a bad thing, because,
right.
Is it a cliche or formula that I have 5 fingers on my hand? Well, most people do. So I'm sorry. That's the cliche. Oh, he has 5 fingers. Well, there's occasional people have 4 fingers, but most people have 5 fingers. So, and narratives are similar, the narratives go a certain way. When you just dissect all the stories from all over, and take a look at Joseph Campbell, who did a pretty good job with this.
Yeah.
And there's rhythms and patterns to storytelling, and we can call it formula or not. I just think within the area of storytelling, there's all kinds of latitude and place to be creative, and that's what we have to really stress. We have to learn the basic craft and teach the basic craft, and then really urge people to be exposed to movies that push that element, to find real original characters and real original situations and events. So that's
and I do feel like, at least in this day and age, students, of screenwriting, any kind of film, director, any kind of film thing, like, you have YouTube now, and they have these smaller film festivals, and they have, there is a little bit more exposure if they really want to, get people to see their stuff. So when I think about, all these big blockbusters, it's not fair for these people. But on the other hand, with technology, they can get their stuff out there and known in different ways than, going to Hollywood and trying to get somebody to know, to meet as,
Absolutely correct. I totally agree.
So
I just urge anybody who's serious about screenwriting or any aspect about film to familiarize yourself with the great movies all around the world. It's a new form. So as opposed to, books that we've been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, writing and storytelling, you could get involved with, in the next 10 years, you could probably watch all the great movies ever made. maybe in the next 5 years, if we look at it. And the filmmakers that I know and that I'm aware of, I'm real successful filmmakers, they're still watching, and like me, I still watch 1 to 3 movies a week, all the time, every week. Me too. Out all the time.
Right.
And you just do that so in a year you're going to watch hundreds of movies every year. And you want to expand yourself. And I said the Europeans have brought a huge amount of wonderful movies to the screen. South Americans, the Japanese have their own culture, the Chinese, the Koreans. There's a lot of Indian filmmakers. There's a lot of films that the good filmmakers that you like today, trust me, are aware of all of those films.
Yeah, and I find myself, as I get older, because I'm 52, and,
Sure.
I find myself always, like, if I sit down on a Saturday night, I'm like, you know what, I want to watch the Alfred Hitchcock movie. Like, I always go back,
Yeah,
I don't,
true.
I don't,
Yeah.
a lot of times I don't go for, the movies made in the last 5 years. I'll
Right.
be like, no, I absolutely want to watch, something that from the 40s, 50s, 60s, rather than
I
today,
hear you,
because it's such a they're just such classics, and,
Yeah, well, they're a little more adult, for starters.
And there's more dialogue, don't you think? I feel like there's also more dialogue. If I want to hear dialogue,
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
I can.
Take a look at this movie, Mr. Holmes, when I told you about.
I definitely will.
Came out last year. Bill Condon directed it. It's relatively small, but it's a rewarding film. Really, really fine. So when one watches movies like this, they kind of get restored with their faith in movies. And of course, we have to talk about long form television, which is really the predominant form and really causing most of the excitement within the entertainment industry today, much more than films, I think, is the long form television.
What do you consider like long form television?
Well, Breaking Bad is one of the great ones, of course. Long form.
Everybody uses it.
Right. That's one of the great modern big stories. Mad Men, those are the great ones too. These are the novel versions of visual narrative. So over a period of time, we get to grow and learn the characters in depth. That's wonderful stuff.
Right, and for writers, like when they're looking at television, that's another thing. It's like now, because of Netflix and Amazon and you'll get these smaller stations that are putting out these shows. They put them all out at once, and you're watching shows you would have never watched before. So it's a great time to be a writer. If you want to be a television writer, I think it's a great time to go into television. To tell a story.
Totally right. There are currently over 400 scripted shows out right now. 400.
Wow.
Biggest in history. And people will say it's going to peak at 5. And they're all looking for audiences, and they really, are appealing to various niche groups. And it's very hard, it's very competitive. The networks are really competing with each other. But there's a lot of need for writers that can tell these stories in certain ways, and again, especially writers. It's an unrelenting profession, but it's unrelenting on so many levels. Its demands and what it does to you and what it demands of you, and it's a fascinating thing. So again, we just can't really talk about movies and screen narratives without including screen narratives on the small screen. So. Correct.
Well, I really want to thank you for, I'm really glad I came across you and found your short movie, because I think what I got from, History of the World in 8 minutes is that, especially in this day of technology, like a story pops up and you just take that as like what you see, and you right away judge it without knowing anything.
Look at our politics today. Absolutely correct.
Exactly, without knowing anything. And what I loved about the people that were discussing what was going on, it's like there's backstories to everything, but especially our kids, like they don't see, like they'll see something on Instagram or something on Yahoo, and it's like it's like permanent in their brain. What they just saw is the whole story. And I was like, it was brilliant. It was like I showed my children, and I have 6 of them, so I showed all of them your movie, and I was like, see, there's always another. You don't know the story until you know the story. Like you don't know,
Absolutely correct. Every one of your kids will have a different perspective of the family experience.
Mm-hmm.
Every person's different in the family, and that works again and again. So I think, you really got the spirit and the themes what I was trying to convey in that film.
Yes, it's absolutely brilliant. So, well, I thank you so much for talking with me today. It was very fascinating, and thank you for giving me your time. And I will check out your other movie, The Lucky Ones, right? And we can get that Netflix. Do you have any websites or blogs, or
I do. I do have. I don't even know if that movie's on it, but New York Script Consultants .com. and I could send you some of the stuff if you want. I'll send you some of the
Yes,
information.
absolutely, and I'll put it as a tag underneath here, and
Perfect.
and anybody who so you do script consulting in case anybody out there has a script, and
I do. I do all that.
Okay, awesome. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. It's lovely talking to you, and it's really great your enthusiasm, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, enthusiasm. So,
great. Thank you. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.